We're
I
live.
started drinking stevia. I think that's what it's called.
Oh,
you guys had
stevia?
stevia?
Yeah.
Their root beer actually tastes like root beer.
Oh, really?
Oh, is it the really strong root beer taste where all you can taste is essentially the roots?
Uh-oh, something's...
Something just fell.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I had Twitch unmuted. That was the problem.
Oh. Callers, turn down your radio.
Yeah, I was like, oh god, what happened?
There's two of me.
I don't know what we were talking about. Oh yeah, stevia.
Root
Yeah,
beer.
no, like most of it tastes the exact same, but the root beer, like, I mean, it still has that stevia taste, but it is root beer on top of that.
Interesting.
It's also really weird because it's clear.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
But-
odd.
We like it since it's 0 calories, 0 sugar, and Susie wants us to hate life and commit suicide, so she's been doing the keto diet.
Oh, God.
By the way, what's that?
It's high fat, no carb type diet. Like
A
you
lot of
basically
meat,
get
right?
yeah, you get like 20 to 30 carbs a day, but it basically means I can't shop for her the way I've been shopping for her, and she will eat whatever I cook in its entirety immediately because
I'm so
she's
hungry.
just so yeah.
Huh.
It's like we know that the artificial sweetener stuff probably is bad for us too, but she'll usually have a
It's bad in
stevia
some
thing.
other way.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much everything. It sounds a bit like it's the inverse of the Atkins diet.
Yeah. It's like,
I mean, it's Atkins on steroids.
oh, I thought Atkins was, what am I thinking of? Am I thinking of paleo, maybe?
Where it's
Paleo
all meat.
All meat and fruit, right? And nuts.
and
I can't
isn't
keep
that
track
raw
of all of them.
veggies too or something? Or that's something. Like the
Many
Atkins
of these
diet
things.
is a low carb diet, but like you can still have a lot of things. Like
Oh, okay.
keto is just super extreme. Like she
Super
literally
hardcore.
only eats meat. Like we go to Chipotle and she'll order steak, chicken, and I think she gets guacamole on it. And-
Just like
and,
a
that
meat
is
bowl.
yeah, that is it. No rice, no beans.
Oh,
You need
man.
to go to one of those Brazilian steakhouses where they got the go stop thing.
Yeah.
I've never been to one. I really want to.
Yeah, I
I've never
haven't
been
either.
either, but I really want to too. Mostly because I just want to see
they're
like the green.
$30 a person, or
Yeah, but $30 a person and you eat your body weight in meat, you'll be fine. You'll
She'll be full for the first time.
Yes.
no idea. I have no doubt that it will be worth it. I just
Yeah, it's the same as me. It's the sticker shock of, oh, it's more than $15. I ain't doing that.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
yeah no. My goal is that me and her eat out for $20 or less if I can help it. But
Yeah.
$20 per person.
since she started this diet, though, we can't do that. Like our Chipotle meal's gone up to like 25ish because like she'll get double meat on it. Because
Just, I
nothing else
want
is
one
in the
of
damn
all the
bowl.
meats, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I
Hey there,
essentially have to look
T-Bomb
for
rocks.
AT, and yeah, I
Some
essentially
plants.
have to look for vegan stuff when me and Jess go out. Just because her diet is so restricted that it's like no red meat, limited dairy options, limited everything options. It's we still go all the other places, but then it's always like, okay, I'll have this, but none of X, Y, and Z, or I'll
Yeah.
have, you know.
Yeah, Susie can't eat most places now. Like it is like eating out with a vegan, except vegans like beans.
Right.
I don't understand a diet that won't let you eat beans, since that's
They're
you know,
so
like
good
a-
for you.
yeah. Protein, fiber, like that's how I digest things.
Yeah. I can understand if they're like, hey, man, don't eat so much cheese. It's like, all right, yeah, that's fair. I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be a rule of thumb everywhere, though, to be honest.
Yeah, but cheese is so good.
I know. I know. I'm just saying it should be a rule. I'm not saying I'm going to follow that rule.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it should be a rule.
That's fair.
I
Fucking
generally
hell.
only do like 1 to 2 big cheese meals for myself a week, but I love cheese, I just don't digest it well.
Yeah.
Oh, I got into a heated debate with my wife over what was better, bread and cheese or bread and tomato. there was a Twitter poll posted about this and everything.
Of course there was.
I'm
Cheese
really
one.
confused at this whole premise. Like, how could bread and a tomato? Tomato is how I normally say it. I will not succumb to your English ways.
Okay, so basically it's a case of no matter what the meal is, what pairs better with a breaded item? Is it cheese or is it tomato? So take your pastas, like with your breads and your tomatoes and your pasta sauces and your aioli and all this other stuff put together, and then you take your grilled cheese sandwich, which is cheese and bread and heat. Like,
I'm
obviously
drooling
it's
a little bit over the idea of a grilled cheese sandwich right now. I'm so hungry.
grilled cheese sounds so fucking good.
I'd
But
be down for that with a good tomato on it, honestly.
that was actually her argument on the grilled cheese was yes, but it's not a grilled cheese unless it's got a tomato on it. But my whole thing is cheese goes better with bread than tomato does for me. And
Yeah.
all the bread products and all the cheese products, I just think cheese is better with bread. And if she watches this, which I'm hoping she doesn't because it's Game Club and she does not like side-scrolling platformers or puzzle games, then I'm going to kick this whole war off again, and then it's going to be another issue again.
Well, T-Bomb Rocks is going to distract us. He says, Florida has a place called Texas de Brazil, and it's $44 a person, but amazing. It's got 120 types of meat that got brought out to your table every 30 seconds. We call it the Golden Meat Place.
That sounds magical.
Yeah, I want to go there. I want to die in there, which I probably would.
So are we going to plan a road trip to Florida at some point?
Apparently, all three of us converge.
Yeah, am I the one who's furthest away from that fucking place as well?
I'm a good 15 hours or so away, I think.
I think I'm probably... When I looked at it, I think I'm 3,000 miles.
You know what's really scary for you, Boston?
Yeah.
That's the distance from England to New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
This big old world of ours.
Yep.
I gotta write this down. Game Club pre-show goes in Outcast.
Let's see if you remember.
T-Bomb says he will house us, so...
Perfect.
Who's ready for a road trip to just go eat a bunch of meat?
This guy.
This guy. Not this guy's wife.
Oh, man. Alright, on that note, are you guys ready to kick this thing off?
Are you using the English kick this thing off there, by the way?
What?
Are you using the English terminology for kick this thing off? Because a kick off in England is a fight.
Oh, no. I was thinking,
ready to
whenever I
go.
think of a fight in England, I think of a punch-up.
Fuck off. Punch up isn't used.
I know, but I'm a
Barney.
Radiohead fan, so...
A Barney is used more than a punch up.
That makes sense. Is punch-up more posh?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the working class places, it's a Barney, it's a rumble, it's kicking the shit out of each other. We don't use such pretty analogies where I'm from.
These colorful sort of English terms. Well, thanks for joining us for the pre-show, T-Bomb. you missed the happy portion of the show. Now we get into the angry one. Alright, you guys ready to kick this thing off?
Yep.
Yep.
Alright, let's get started here in 3, 2, 1. It's the third Saturday of the month, which means we're back for Game Club yet again. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpier.
Hello.
And Musum.
Hey.
This month we're going to be talking about Owlboy. Let's get all the good stuff out of the way here first. Released on PC November 1st, 2016. Sort of trickled out on everything else sort of every couple of months after that. Developed and published by D-Pad Studio, a studio of about 5 people. I just looked on their website. Came out on PC, OS X, Linux, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. In my notes section, I wrote, famous for its incredibly long development cycle. It was about 10 years, long enough that it was written in XNA. So,
Wow.
if that gives you any idea. It was supposed to come out on the 360 originally, and
Oh, wow.
missed that by a couple of years, by about half of a generation.
Part of me wonders, like, because in the credits for this game, it is one of the... I think the bass player is credited as Phil Spencer, and I'm torn between checking if that is the Phil Spencer.
I wonder if it is. That'd be so fun.
Yeah.
I licensed this game and play bass.
Yes.
Time travel, Metacritic is 89, OpenCritic is 88. That is high. Appears for the release date, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which means that probably everything else in this list got smacked down. Dishonored 2, Watch Dogs 2, and Final Fantasy 15. So that was a hell of a month.
Yeah.
We thought 2017 had the games, but man.
2017 does have the games. Come on.
That's true.
The rule of sevens.
Yeah. Top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked.
If we're talking about the public perception of it, this thing was top of the pile because the second people started playing this, they wouldn't shut up about it. But if we're talking about what we think of it,
we'll get to that in a minute. I was actually going to say middle of the pack before I saw the reviews for this, and everyone's like, platforming's back, the return of 2D games. I'm just like, okay, I thought this kind of was a flash in the pan, but maybe better received than I remember.
I was reading Kill Screen Daily's article earlier today on it, and they are just lavishing praise over it. And they actually, they made me like it a little bit more than I actually. I mean, I'm kind of indifferent to the game for the most part, but the things they were pointing out was, oh, we have this disabled main character who has to depend on other people to get by, and we like that because in real life they have to do that, and drew some analogies there, and I'm like, okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into what we liked and what we didn't like of Owlboy.
Are we going to do the reverse normally? Because normally we end on the negative, but normally the negative is a very small section compared to the positive.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just hit it up at the start.
Yeah. I think...
I want to go first.
Yeah, you go first.
Owlboy, to me, Owlboy is the cautionary tale of a small team or an individual developer being too married to their ideas. Because half of this game is really good, and half of this game is some of the most frustrating 2D platforming I've played in decades. And where the game is really good is, I think, almost all the bosses are really great and have clever mechanics, except for maybe that blob boss that was maybe a little too easy, and maybe I don't understand why the stuff was closing on the walls. But other than that, the first boss, I thought the first boss was really great. You're pulling off the shell and you're shooting it and keeping the shell away, that I didn't even realize until Moonpier told me you could just
yep, you can just smack the shell away.
Yeah, toss it to the other side of the room. But then as soon as you do that, the whole first dungeon as an example is really great, and the intro is really great, and you get a lot of story. And then you hit that stupid gnome part. And that's the beginning of the end for this game for me. Literally an hour into a game that I think took me about 6 hours to finish. Well, to be fair, full disclosure, I didn't finish this because there's a section at the very, very end where you're going through the up in space owl temple library place. And you drop down and you open this thing, and the wind is pushing you back and a bunch of rocks are flying at you.
Yep.
Game would crash every time I would push that button. So
okay.
I couldn't. I had to watch the last 15 minutes on YouTube.
Musim, what was your platform of choice? I'm guessing Boston's was yours PC?
PS4.
PS4. Musim?
I Switch.
Okay. How was it on Switch? Because I have some issues with the controls in this game, and I'm curious how it was on the Switch.
I thought it was fine, but at the same time, I also don't like the controls for the game, period. I don't like the jump physics in it.
Yep.
Everything, nothing in it feels good that you're doing, really, except the visual, feedback of, oh, cool, I just pulled up a plant, or, I didn't realize I could pull that up, or, oh, cool, that thing exploded. But, physics-wise, none of it felt good on the controls.
So, I wrote this mini rant in my notes here. I thought the jumping felt okay. The arc was very long. It felt a little floaty, which he's an owl, he can fly. Although he's not really an owl, I guess?
I
It's the
don't know.
cloak.
I don't know.
Spoiler alert, Owlboy isn't the dude you're playing as anyway, so,
Yep.
you know, whatever.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
The thing that drove me the most crazy about the controls is the game during the very intro teaches you to fly, you just double jump. So on PS4 you hit X twice.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the only way you can fly, because you can also hit X and then hold up, and that will also make you fly. So if you're holding,
I did not know that.
if you're
I didn't know that
holding
either.
up, like I always am, because I'm when you're in the air, you don't use like X and triangle to go up and down. You're using the analog stick. So I'm always, my brain is always thinking, oh, well, I'm just gonna fly, so I'm gonna hold up and then double tap X. The first time you press X and you're holding up, you start
fly
flying,
and then you
you
land.
hit X, and you crash back to the ground. And
Yep.
where that kept screwing me is the whole middle half of the game where you're hiding from those robot pirates one time after another, where it's like, okay, perfect, I can fly. Nope, I landed on them. Cool, poison gas.
Yep. I don't know if it's just my controller in this case, but based on everybody's issues with the control, shall we say, I played it on the Xbox One, and that version is loose as
Yes.
all kinds of controls, because the issue I kept running into was when you start motion, he starts really quick and then seems to slow down and get into like a rhythm of speed. Like he just starts quick and then levels it a little slower. When you're navigating, I don't know, a corridor full of spikes or thorns, I literally hit every single thorn.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that acceleration, I'd be like, okay, I need to go past this stupid mollusk thing that's moving left and right. Get past that, but because of the acceleration, I'd immediately hit the thorns, and then, okay, go right. Oh, no, hit those thorns. Okay, go up. No, hit those thorns. It's just...
So full disclosure, when I got to the darkness area with the thorns and the darkness that damaged you when you hit it, I just said screw it and watch the rest of the game.
I don't blame you.
Completely understandable.
And
Like
one of the weird things too, Moon, what you're talking about with the controls is, and I sort of understand why they did this, but I sort of don't, that your character moves faster the more health you have. So if you have full health, especially when you're doing the like dodge roll mechanic, you move way faster out of that. So you have two movement speeds in this sometimes pretty precise platformer, and man, that killed me so many times.
I'll tell you, the first time I ran into a waterfall, I did not understand why it was not flying.
Yep, same here. They did not explain that at all, that you couldn't fly in the waterfalls. It took me so long to figure that out.
And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, okay, like, he looks a little... like...
He's got the drips.
Yeah, like, the water is very much pushing on him, and his face sort of looks like he's a little burdened, but... that's the problem with Owlboy, is there's so much of this little stuff that all adds up. Like, if there was just that one section with the gnomes, or that one section on the Dreadnought where you're avoiding the pirates, that's fine. But every dungeon and every new area has something like that, has some sort of BS area like that just ground me down until the game just won. The game beat me.
Well, I mean, we look at the darkness area. There's a perfect example of this. The gnomes, okay, fine, whatever. It's a quote-unquote stealth section. It feels like this game is trying to be a little bit of everything. But when you get to the darkness area, it would be one thing to just have it be dark and the walls be flat, or have it brightly lit and have all of the walls be spikes. Why do you need to throw the two things at once?
Right.
Like, it seems like it's just like, it feels like they're trying to harken back to the old days of, you know, when we're gonna have this nice, easy, like, fun, enjoyable section, just like all the old games used to have, and then we're gonna kick you in the teeth because that's what the old NES games used to do.
Right.
You used to get to level 3 and then die.
Yeah.
Also, this is the second month in a row we've had a game with darkness sections. I do not appreciate
Yeah.
them.
Well, I mean, That's a really great point, because when you look at Owlboy versus Shovel Knight did that a great job at bringing your nostalgia to the modern age, but smoothing out the edges. Where Moon, I think you have a really great point, where it's like, all right, this is a fun tutorial, look how great this game looks, oh great, I'm gonna punch your lights out. You know, like, this is, platformers used to be hard and we're bringing that back. And sort of like, well, they don't need to be like that anymore. And I think part of what I think is really interesting about Owlboy is, except for that darkness dungeon, I think the level design in a lot of those dungeons was actually really good. And there's unfortunately no map, but the dungeons were sort of small enough and laid out well enough that for most of them I felt okay if I did it in one sitting. If I did it in two sittings, I was looking up a video guide and just, like, there was no way I was finding it. But when you take that dungeon that was in the darkness so much, you have to simplify the layout, because you literally cannot see where you're going.
And it gets even better, because on that dungeon thing, on that light section, when you get to the split and the little fairies that you're supposed to follow, like the little fireflies, one goes up and one goes down. If you follow the one that goes down, it goes to the right and it's a little rough section. But there is a lamp on the right-hand side at a dead end that if you light it, it lights up the rest of the area for you. Not so you can see, but so that you can see the spikes and you can see the walls rather than it being pure dark.
Right. Well, in that area, I was good with. Like, it was the area later where you get the weird bug swarm in, and I was just like, eh.
Yeah,
no, that's the area I'm talking about. Like, when you're...
I think the place where it diverged two paths, didn't that happen before the bug swarm, though?
Oh,
or does the bug swarm happen a couple times? Because I know I reached a path where I had two lights diverge, and I said, well, screw it, I guess I'm following this one.
Right. Well,
maybe they had a second instance, and I just reached my limit. And
well, there was the weird part about that dungeon, too, where you're eating the glowing fruit that sort of makes you glow a little bit for a set amount of time, and it just...
Oh, I didn't know that. I just carried it around with me.
Yeah, you could eat it, and then you could pick your friends back up and do it. But, like, that's one of the innate problems with Owlboy, is I feel like it is expecting you to experiment with mechanics, but never really gives you an opportunity to do so safely.
Yes.
So it's sort of like, okay, I can carry this fruit and the level is going to stop killing me. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to keep going through it, because if I drop this fruit, I'm going to die in 2 seconds. Like, there's an expectation there that I don't feel like the game ever really earned.
I feel a bit bad saying this, but the funny thing for me is, by the way, the section you're talking about, where it kept on crashing for you, Boston, it crashed 3 times for me in that exact same place.
Wow.
You press the button, the wind starts, and then it crashed. And one time I fell off the edge and it crashed. One time it crashed right there. And then the third time I think it crashed when I was halfway back across. I kind of broke the last level of this game, if I'm completely honest, because, and I think this should have been in the game a lot earlier. If you collect all of the Buccaneer coins, the last reward you get is a sparkly cloak, which is an owl cloak. And when you do the dodge move or when you do the spin attack, it turns you into a shadow, and your attack radius is much bigger. Oh, okay. It also makes you invincible.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So while you're in that shadow form, you are basically invincible. So I literally did a lap around the entire thorn section, touching the edges of the walls, just hitting B to dash all the way through. Right. Didn't do a single spot of damage, and the last boss got 2 hits on me.
Nice.
So
I don't... Man, that makes me wish I'd tried to get everything, but I kind of did my attitude went in a U shape on this game, and that it started at the bottom because I didn't know anything about this game going in.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I knew the cover art, and I despised the cover art for this game on the Switch store. So when I heard we were doing this, I was like, "Oh, that looks so terrible." Then I played it. I'm like, "Okay, the writing's a bit heavy-handed with your trainer guy hating you so much." And
I still have a. Sorry, I'm going to take a tangent here. I like the majority of the characters in the game. Like, Alphonse is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like Twig.
Twig is really great. But I think Osseo is, throughout the entirety of the game, is so horrible to Otis.
Mm-hmm.
For really no reason. Like, at some point, he's saving the world, and Osseo's like, okay, well, maybe next time don't try and break the world, stupid. And I'm like, but, come on!
Out of curiosity, on the video you watched, did you see the ending that had the white ghosts?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, there's really only one ending that I found. Because I was a little disappointed by the ending. And I wasn't disappointed by the story up until the White Ghost Dreamtime.
Yep.
I will give the game some credit. I thought the lore was really interesting. I liked this whole floating continents and the owls of old, you know, were breaking the universe, and they made these robots that are now the pirates. Like, a lot of really fun twists. I didn't think Solus was a guy up until the very end. I thought Solus was a lady, and
yep.
I think it's kind of fun that that was Owlboy and not Otis.
Yeah, that's a really good moment.
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit of a cop-out for the game to, especially at the end, bring forward like all this stuff about the Hex and anti-Hex and the loop and all this cool lore all of a sudden. And then at the end, you know, Shadow Osseo tells suddenly speaking Otis that it doesn't really matter what the loop is, like, don't worry about it. It's like, well, it seems pretty important because it almost destroyed the universe, so...
No, it's the owls almost destroyed the universe because they wanted to break the loop. The loop just seems like a natural order of things. It's probably the whole secular nature of like the expansion and contraction of the universe that could be considered a loop. And
there's a user who did a bunch of like lore research on this game and posted basically an essay on the Steam forums, and like basically has this big theory that Otis broke the loop, like whenever he fixed everything at the end. But I don't remember the specifics enough of it.
Yeah, because it almost seemed like with the very end of the game that it could be that he either broke the loop or that the way that the game began was the start of the loop again. Like, Otis was always going to be stuck in this thing he was always going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to give two compliments to it, though, at least. I really like the art style and animation style.
Yes.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
It doesn't necessarily always communicate what it needs to, but it's still gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yep.
The music, especially that ice level. When
I was going to say, yeah, Misos is the best piece of music I've heard in video games this year, in my opinion.
Yep.
That's
I don't know if I'd run that
beautiful.
far, but it's definitely really, really good.
Yeah.
Ice level music is always the best. Like
that's true.
Ice levels are the worst. It's the counterbalance. Ice levels suck. Ice music rocks.
That's true.
Yeah. Like my favorite piece of music from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is like when you go to the Ice Titan thing in there. But anyway. Let me see. Yeah, that was my two compliments. So
I wanna leverage one last negative on the game before I start hitting my positives. Riding that giant metal snake boss was the worst. That was easily the lowest point in this game.
That looked pretty annoying in the video.
It was hard enough. Like up is up and down is down on the D-pad on the analog stick,
and then it starts flying upside down, and down is up and up is down.
That was
it's
good.
It's the inverted versus non-inverted argument in one section of a game.
You get both of them.
Yes.
Yeah. I was surprised at how much I liked the story, because I feel like so many this isn't a pejorative, but like so many indie developers are married to the story in their game, and it's either too thin or way too heavy-handed. And I feel like other than the intro, Owlboy struck a pretty great balance. I think because your three companions were so interesting.
Yes.
Getty probably being the worst of them, but he was still a little bit fun.
Yeah. Did you get the key and see the snow cave thing?
No, no, no.
The drumming guy in Virile, if you play his drums in his house, the same notes that he is playing them, he drops a key which opens the question mark area up in Mesos in the ice area.
Oh.
Where you can investigate the wall, but you can't do anything.
Right.
He drops a key that opens that, and you go in there, and it's a chest containing the drumming guy's brother's remains and all their last possessions.
Oh, wow.
The drummer guy left there because his family is entirely dead because of the cold. And he talks about how he wants to, you know, take the music that they created together and enlighten other people with it. And it's this really touching moment between like the three companions, Otis, and realizing that it's the drummer guy, his family used to live there.
Right.
But because of the temperature spike, which, I've just realized why that place turned cold. I'm such an idiot. Because the land was kept on going up, so the place that used to be a forest turned into a cold area.
Yeah.
Oh. But yeah, that was a great. That is one of my favorite story sections in this game. Is when they go there and they have this really touching moment, talking about this guy's dead family and the effect that his music has on everybody else in Virile, and how that guy kind of. He brings joy to everybody there, and there's this really touching moment where they're talking to basically the graves of his family.
Wow. That's really good. I'll have to go watch that.
It's really kind of cool.
That sounds cool.
But yeah, I mean, like you guys said, the music is great. Like, I wasn't expecting the music to be as good as it was. I thought the first couple of loops were very repetitive, but yeah, the Mesos area is just incredible. The game, like the graphics, like the way the art design in it is incredible as well. The animation is top notch.
There's so much art in it too. Like for something that has to take a painstaking amount of time to create, there's so much in this game.
And I wanna I wanna compliment them because some of the, like you said, the first dungeon design is incredible. The volcano dungeon design I actually really like as well.
I like that.
Minus the fact that touching the lava is an instant death. That's bad design.
Checkpointing wasn't nearly as good in that dungeon as it needed to be.
I feel like the game kind of failed a lot on checkpointing. Like, there were a lot of times I died where I'm like, you really should have put... Like, you guys brought up the gnome thing earlier. Like, if they'd put a checkpoint in the middle of that thing, I think that would have helped. Yeah,
definitely. Because Garrett, like, I'm pretty sure you guys did the same thing I did, where you made it halfway up your very first time, and then one of the stupid ones caught you, and it's just like, oh great, I've got to do it all again.
I have to try it again.
Like, I think they've got a really good foundation for games in the future. They've obviously got really talented, like, art team. They've got a really talented, like, audio team. I just think that they need to work on, and I hate phrasing it this way because it sounds so trite and cliche, they've just got to tighten up the controls, make it feel a little better to play, rather than just being a visual, like, dopamine rush. Super Meat Boy is the prime example of it feels good to control that game.
Yeah.
It did not feel good at almost all of this game to control the people, especially when, for example, stupid stuff like you want to start shooting, you're standing on the floor, you have to start flying before you can summon one of your compatriots to actually do damage.
Right, or like summon them and then pick them up and then start flying. Like it was, and I think one thing that I actually really did like is switching the companions and sort of, especially during some of the boss fights. Like there was the boss fight against Dirk, in the Dreadnought, where you know you're using Twig to use his grapple to sort of switch places with the boss to kind of fly opposite walls so you could sort of block his daggers. That felt really great. And then once he's done switching over to Alphonse to kind of do some damage to him, like the switching and the puzzle mechanics between switching with the people and carrying them around felt really good. But you know, you move a lot slower when you're picking up Alphonse or when you're carrying Alphonse and sometimes Twig. So a lot of the times I was just dropping them in the abyss and then just kind of moving on by myself, which didn't maybe feel like in the spirit of the game.
Yeah, trophy reference, you're a bad boy.
Yes, but I do agree with you, Moon, where D-Pad Studio is someone that if they make a second game, I'm going to be pretty interested, because you're right, the foundation is there, the art, the music, the engine, you know, except for some of the crashing stuff we had at the very end, which I'm surprised hasn't been resolved. That stuff is all solid. It's just controls and design, which probably the design can be shored up in the second game, because it's a lot of, okay, well, it's our first game and it just took forever, and maybe we sort of couldn't see the forest for the trees on some of this stuff. But they announced that they're coming out with another game. I'm not going to say like, well, they made Owlboy, so chuck them in the bin. You know, not that, but could be pretty interesting.
No, there's a lot of positives here, and I would be interested in seeing what they do next. I'd probably end up watching things to do with it before I actually picked it up. Yeah. To see if they fixed the issues I have, but
yeah, I'd want to see a gameplay video.
Well, I'd probably want to see reviews and sort of.
I feel like the reviews on Owlboy were way higher than I would ever have felt for it. Like I very much disagree with them on some aspects of it. So.
I was going to see if Giant Bomb reviewed Owlboy.
I think for me, this is. I know we don't put numbers on, but for me, this is a middle of the road game. This is a 5 out of 10. Like, it's got really astoundingly beautiful and amazing parts, and then it's got absolutely horrific tear it down from the foundations parts. Yep. So for me, it just sits dead center of the road. It's like it's a middle of the road game.
It's a really good game,
and it's really bad. So
yeah. And I feel like if this game had come out on the 32X or the Sega CD, Game of the Year, Game of the Generation, like it would have really captured us at that time, because all of this would have really spoken to how games worked then, and not the whole thing, but it really harkens back to that day, like I was like to that era, sort of like I was saying that Shovel Knight doesn't. It's just sort of a shame that it wasn't a little, the design and the expectations weren't a little bit more modern.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ultimately to me came out as kind of bland in the end. Like the aspects I liked about it at first were just taken down by the issues we've already talked about here, and like there's some potential there, but it's not something I think anyone should necessarily go and spend their time with if they don't have a lot. So
I'm especially, I think for me, I'm mostly disappointed because I've been looking forward to, when Owlboy's trailers came out on 360, it looked exactly like this. And that game coming out on 360 would have been revolutionary. I mean, this was before, even before Braid or Fez or, the real indie, the start of the indie explosion. And for it to come out and be okay is just kind of a real bummer.
Well, that nails it then. Like you said, they made this feels and plays like a 2007, 2008 kind of game.
Yeah.
And that's both positive and a negative.
Yep.
It makes you wonder, like, because usually when a game development goes this long, it seems like they've completed the game and then decided, no, this can't be it, and so they've gone back and changed significant things. It makes me wonder what that original playthrough was like after the first couple of years.
Yeah, because I was reading an interview. I stumbled across it trying to figure out how many people were part of the development studio, and the main guy, Simon something, said that basically they restarted that game completely a number of times because it was taking so long, and they were getting increasingly nervous about how fans would react to the game coming out after being in development for so long. So it got in this horrible catch-22 of this anxiety over this game taking so long and not being good enough, so it took longer and increased anxiety.
That's the positive. Again, that's a positive and a negative for the big studio model, where big studio model is, in general, if a big studio spends 200 million or 100 million or whatever producing a game over the course of 5 years, that game is coming out no matter what condition it is in,
right,
good or bad. Whereas small studios like this, I mean, we saw the same thing. I'm not sure if Musem's read Blood, Sweat and Pixels as well, but If you read the
I have
section,
not.
yeah, if you read the section on Stardew Valley,
Yeah.
you'll see a very similar like thought process there, where it's one dude making the game and he's like putting a bunch of time into it, and then all of a sudden he stops and works on something else because he's like, no, the people are not going to like this section,
Right.
and he completely changes his objectives because the influence of the community affecting a small number of people versus a huge studio is kind of very severe.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they did it, but at the end of the day, it feels like a 10-year-old game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend. I think that's a really great point. That number one, go read Blood, Sweat, and Pixels by Jason Schreier. It's really good. Number two, I think that does shed light, especially that Stardew Valley chapter about like, I have been sitting alone in my house for 12 hours a day during my free time making this thing. There's no way it can be good enough. I'm the only one that will like this. Whoops, it's actually a giant hit. You know, it's
Yep.
that anxiety and that mentality behind it. So that's a really great point. Anything else you guys want to say? It sounds like I think we've sort of all spoken our piece.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much. I honestly didn't come into this with a whole lot to say about it.
Well, let's talk about our next game. This is an odd month, so this was a randomly chosen game. Our next game is Unravel for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Oh wow.
Moonpier's pick. This one, I believe, is pretty short, which is great. And Unravel 2 just came out last week during E3, so never a better time.
Yes.
How long would you say it is, Moon?
I did the 100% on it, and I think I did it in 10 hours.
Okay.
I think you can probably beat this game in about 4.
Perfect.
Like, if you're in the mood for a quick playthrough, the puzzles aren't too hard. There are some tricky sections in it, but it's probably about 4 hours worth.
Okay.
Maybe
yeah,
6.
I actually just purchased it this morning on PSN, and it was $5.
Wow.
For the next couple days, it is $10 off. So E3 sales are sort of going crazy right now, so you might want to, if you're listening to this on release, you might be able to scoop it up for very cheap. I think it was part of Games with Gold a while ago, right?
I believe it was, and if it wasn't, it's definitely on EA Access. It's in the vault if you're an EA Access member as well.
Yeah, so for a couple of bucks, sort of anywhere you can get it, it's probably on sale on GOG. And
yeah, for the record, How Long to Beat has it as main story 6, completionist 11.5.
Okay, sounds about right. All right, so we will reconvene in 4 more weeks to talk about Unravel, and
I look forward to this.
yeah, and we will see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you very much, everyone, for watching the live stream. We'll be back tomorrow with TVGP episode 556, our burgeoning 6-hour-long episode for E3. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we will get through it somehow. See you tomorrow. Bye.